So let's first talk a little bit about some vocabulary. And this will be important because when you're kind of breaking down these word problems, you're going to want to be able to use your context clues to help guide the next steps in terms of your math. So first off, anytime you see this term representative particle, or sometimes just abbreviated as particle, this really just means the pieces or the parts. And this word can mean many different things, just like the word dozen can mean a dozen roses or a dozen donuts. So each of these three terms down here are examples of words that fall under the classification of representative particles. And we want to make sure that we're being very clear about understanding what an atom is, what a molecule is, and what a formula unit is. An atom, easy. This talks about just a single element. And so a couple examples, anything straight off the periodic table, like aluminum, or maybe magnesium, or potentially sulfur. Now, be very careful when we're talking about those diatomics, because remember, there were 7 elements on the periodic table that are diatomics, which means they do not appear in nature as single elements. They appear as compounds. They bond to something, and those were Br, I, N, Cl, H, O, and F. So if you see the word atom talking about one of these, that's talking about the element, these guys. But any other time we see the term like bromine or nitrogen or iodine, that is no longer talking about an atom. Those are diatomic molecules. They are compounds that are bonded together. Which brings us to this term molecule. The word molecule specifically means a covalent compound. So thinking back to the last unit, covalent compounds are compounds that are formed between nonmetals only. And a couple examples of covalent compounds would be something like CO2, carbon dioxide, or water, H2O. Those are both covalent compounds. And then lastly, still considered a representative particle because this is just the piece or the part. This is kind of the generic term. And then these are classified as individual, and it's based on the context. So atom means a single element, molecule means covalent compound. Formula unit is actually how we describe ionic compounds. And if you recall, ionic compounds are compounds made of ions. A lot of the times we abbreviate this to mean that there's a metal plus a nonmetal. That is a bit of an oversimplification, but it works pretty good in most cases. And so some examples, something like NaCl, sodium chloride, because Na comes from the metal side of the periodic table, and chlorine is from the nonmetal side. Or something like magnesium sulfate. Magnesium's a metal. Sulfate is one of those polyatomic ions that we started working with in the last unit.